July 19th, 1977, the world teacher, the Christ Maitreya, head of the spiritual hierarchy, emerged from his ancient retreat and is now in the modern world. With his disciples, the masters of the wisdom, he will inaugurate the new age of synthesis and brotherhood.
Hello and welcome to our World Teacher Program on Wellington's Access Radio 106.1 FM. Presented by Teresa and David on behalf of Share International New Zealand.
Today's podcast starts with a review by Elisa Graf of the book Love is a Radiant Light, The Life and Words of Saint Charbel. The review can be found in the January-February 2024 double issue of Share International magazine. Elisa Graf begins.
It is a priceless opportunity to be given a glimpse into what may have been the last incarnation of a Master of Wisdom, of his character and actions, his thoughts and loving counsel, his faithful example for how life should be lived.
Such a glimpse rewards the reader of Love is a Radiant Light, The Life and Words of Saint Charbel by Father Hanna Skandar. A briefly sketched biography, anecdotes of his life, and, most importantly, his own homilies all bring us close to the saint and his profoundly inspiring and eternally relevant message, illuminating a divine expression of the spiritual path. You cannot become a saint without becoming a human being first, Saint Charbel is known to have said.
Born on the 8th of May 1828 into a pious Christian family as one of 5 children, his life began as Yusuf Anton Magluf in Beka Kafra, the highest village in the mountains of Lebanon. His father died when he was only 3, so his paternal uncle then raised him. The village priest taught him to read and write, and from early in his life he was known to have always carried a prayer book. Due to this and other saintly qualities noted by the local villagers, he was nicknamed the Saint.
At the age of 23, his maternal uncle, a priest named Father Daniel, brought him to the monastery where he resided, and Yusuf is said to have joyfully entered the novitiate, taking his vows and studying for 1 year. He then entered the Lebanese order of Maronites at the St. Maron Monastery in Anaya, taking the name Charbel, meaning story of God, after a 2nd century martyr of the Church of Antioch.
His superiors sent him to the Theological Institute of the Saints Cyprian and Justina in Fifan to study for the priesthood. There he excelled in theology. He was ordained as a priest on the 23rd of July 1859 and spent much of the remainder of his life living as a hermit at several different monasteries and hermitages, practicing deep prayer and asceticism and presiding over daily Mass. At the age of 70, whilst in the middle of performing the Mass, he suffered a stroke and died 6 days later, on Christmas Eve.
After his death, many remarkable happenings occurred related to what was found to be his incorruptible body, which, up to 1965, nearly 70 years after his death, did not show any signs of decomposition. Villagers noted that, after he was entombed in the monastery, bright lights could be seen illuminating the area at night where his body had been laid to rest.
The body was exhumed numerous times over the decades and is said to have exuded water and oil, which were shown to have tremendous healing properties. More than 13,000 miraculous healings attributed to Saint Charbel have been compiled in the records of the monastery in Anaya. These miracles continue to this day, curing and helping many who are made aware of Saint Charbel and pray to him.
Brief anecdotes of his life illustrate that Charbel's serious character was also marked by a profound humility, and that he was always happy, joyful in the Lord, cheerful, content with his state of life. He never engaged in the political struggles of his order or in petty personality conflicts, and went about his duties as if he were not present. All his thoughts were directed to God. His hands were calloused by hard work, as he assiduously engaged in manual labour for the monastery up until his death.
It is in his own homilies that we come to an intimate experience of the deep faith and eternal wisdom of St. Charbel. Students of the ageless wisdom will note echoes of these teachings in his beautifully illustrated analogies. In them he reminds us that the kingdom of heaven is within, and that holiness is a choice that one must truly live. Quote, God predestined you to holiness and not to death. Holiness is not luck. Holiness is a choice. Holiness is a grace and a decision. The grace is given to you by God. It is up to you to make your decision. You are potentially saints. Strive to be saints in reality.
He makes reference to the fact of the evolution of consciousness as the spiritualization of matter. Your voyage in this world is a path towards holiness, which is a perpetual transformation of the material state toward the state of light. We are also encouraged to recognize that the kingdom of God itself is not an end, but a journey, that you make within you by the power of the Spirit, step by step, over the course of the days, and in the little details that fill the moments of your life, second by second.
He counsels us to accept this journey as a process, attempting to put into practice the truths we are able to understand. Live in the light of the truth that you grasp, and follow it. And we must arrive at the goal by our own efforts. God lights the pages, but it is up to you to read them. God illumines the way for you, but it is up to you to walk in it. Someone who climbs uses his feet. Someone who descends does so with his feet, and wherever you arrive, your feet are what brought you there.
He reminds us that we ourselves create our own reality, and that we must free ourselves from our own thoughts and beliefs. Free yourself from the cords that tie you up. Your thoughts, your own beliefs, and your inclinations fetter you like the ropes that immobilize the ship at the dock and secure it, but they do not let you sail. Let the word of God release you from your bonds by breaking them one after the other, even if it cause you suffering. If we listen humbly, he assures us, we will understand the truth, and it will set us free.
In a homily called Every Family is a Holy Family, St. Charbel illustrates the paramount significance of the human family, which, as an image of the divine family, is thus holy. It transmits God's plan from one generation to another, spreading God's love, and this is what makes it so important. The family, he says, is what ties human beings to each other through history, and if this cord is cut, humanity is severed from its history and its identity.
This, he says, is why all the forces of evil aim to demolish the family, because destroying it shakes the foundations of God's plan, as the family is the place where a human being enters into communication with God and with his brethren. He exhorts us to protect our families. He warns us to safeguard the warmth of the family, because if it is lost, all the warmth of the world will not make up for it.
Preserve them by prayer and dialogue, by understanding and forgiveness, by sincerity and fidelity, and most importantly, by listening. Listen to one another with your ears, with your heart, with your mouth, and with the palms of your hands. Keep your hands far from the hustle and bustle of the world, because it will sweep away and destroy everything like a raging storm, and the violence of waves when they come back to a house.
At times he appears to express a prophetic understanding of the very problems of our modern time, the enormous pressure so many experience due to their jobs or economic stress, the feeling that there's not enough time for anything, for the care of our families, our communities, ourselves.
As humanity's buildings rise, their morality sinks. Their worldly goods increase, their values diminish. Their speeches multiply, their prayers grow scarce. Their interests deepen, their relationships wear thin. Their facades expand, their interiors become impoverished. They have multiple means of communication, but they do not help them to communicate with each other. Their beds are spacious and comfortable, but their families are small, broken up, and exhausted. They know how to go faster without being able to wait. They are always running to make a living, forgetting to lead their lives.
Saint Charbel shares that the remedy of this lost humanity is Christ. God is love. He is the goal and guide of this lost humanity. Christ is the remedy of the sick man. The water of baptism in the Spirit is what extinguishes the fire raging in the world.
He warns us that however great our knowledge may be, we cannot understand as long as we don't love. Love is much nobler than intellect, he says. The logic of love is much more sublime than that of the intellect. He explains that knowledge without love lacks soul, that it destroys a human being.
In We Must Conquer Weakness, Saint Charbel seems to speak prophetically of the calamitous happenings of the world wars that were to come after his death. While he died more than a century ago, his words could be seen to apply to our modern period as the manifold world crises mount. He writes about the difficulty of the months and years to come.
Violence will reign over all the earth. The planet will be stabbed by the knives of ignorance and hatred. All the nations will totter under the weight of suffering. Fear will beat down on the whole earth like a storm. Sadness will overflow from the heart of everyone. Ignorance and hostile men will preside over the destiny of all their peoples, dragging them along the paths of misery and death, because of the blind revenge that they will nickname justice, and because of the lugubrious ignorance that they will call faith.
It is here where Saint Charbel appears to demonstrate his faith in us, in humanity, as he presages our, humanity's, answer to these happenings. The face of the earth will change, but you will preserve the face of Christ. Boundaries, communities, and regimes will be erased and redrawn. Nations will totter beneath the weight of fire and sword, but you will preserve your love without boundaries. He humbly asks us to be the anchor that holds fast the boats that wander on the turbulent seas. May your hearts be the port of refuge for every human being that is lost, astray, and in need of protection.
And he reminds us that prayer is powerful and has real effect. By your prayers you can bring down the rain of mercy and water the earth with your charity. Pray to soften the hardened hearts, to open the darkened minds, to comfort those who have experienced catastrophes and horrors.
This small book, Love is a Radiant Light, shines with a perennial wisdom that has the power to lift and inspire as well as to console, especially in these very challenging times on our planet. With great faith, Saint Charbel cheerfully asks us to finally have no fear, because the light of Christ will rise and shine. Stand fast in your faith in Christ. Have no fear. Have confidence in the God of resurrection and of life.
You're listening to the World Teacher Program on Wellington's Access Radio 106.1 FM. Some examples of St. Charbel's healing miracles featured in Share International magazine, October 1997, under the heading Hermit of Lebanon, Man of Miracles.
The beatification of Charbel followed the healing of a nun, Sister Maria Abel Kamari. She suffered serious intestinal problems, could not keep food down, had been bedridden for 14 years and had already received the sacrament of extreme unction 3 times. In 1950 she was taken to Charbel's grave and on praying suddenly felt a powerful surge of energy and was able to stand unaided. Since then, Sister Maria Abel Kamari has been completely free of her previous ailments.
More recently, in 1992, some of Charbel's miracles reached the Western press. Swedish papers and the British daily, The Guardian, printed the story of 15-year-old Samira Hanok, who reported having had a vision of Charbel in her home near Stockholm. Since then, oil has been pouring from a portrait of Charbel and has been associated with a number of healings.
A couple of months later, in January 1993, another incident occurred, this time in Lebanon, with 59-year-old Nuhad El-Chami in the main role. Nuhad, a mother of 12 children, suddenly became paralyzed as a result of a narrowing of arteries in a very advanced stage.
On the 21st of January 1993, Nuhad had a dream. 2 monks came towards my bed. One of them, St. Charbel, came nearer, uncovered my neck, put his hand on it and said, "I have come to operate on you." I turned my head to see his face, but I couldn't because the light coming from his body and eyes was too blinding and powerful. I was so confused and asked him, "Father, why do you want to operate on me? The doctors didn't say I need an operation." But St. Charbel said, "Definitely you need an operation, and I, Father Charbel, have come to do it for you."
I looked towards the statue of the Virgin placed near me and said, "Holy Mary, please help me. How are these monks going to operate without anaesthetic or sutures?" Then I realized that the Virgin's statue was standing between the monks. Suddenly I felt a terrible pain under Charbel's fingers, which were rubbing my neck. When St. Charbel finished the operation, the other monk approached, put me in a sitting position, and placed a pillow behind my back. He reached for a glass of water, put his hand behind my head, and said, "Drink this water." "I cannot drink without a straw," I said. He replied, "We have operated on you, and now you will drink this water, then you will stand up and walk."
I woke up and felt water running down my throat, and found myself sitting in the same position as the Father had placed me in. Suddenly I felt a burning in my neck, and unconsciously put my hand there to find out what was happening. Then I realized that my paralyzed hand had become normal again. I felt my paralyzed foot moving normally under the blanket. I got out of bed in a semi-conscious state and knelt before the picture of St. Charbel and the statue of the Virgin to thank them.
I went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. I saw 2 wounds of 12 centimetres each at both sides of my neck. I went to my husband's bedroom and turned on the light. My husband looked at me and shouted, "Woman, how did you get here alone? Now you'll stumble and fall, and a new catastrophe will be added upon another." I raised my paralysed hand and told him, "Have no fear, St. Charbel operated on me, and now I can walk."
This story, described in a second booklet published by the monastery in which Charbel lived, has a follow-up to it. After another dream in which Charbel appeared to her, Nuhad discovered that there was oil flowing from the portrait of the saint. This had continued up to the present moment, as our colleague in Lebanon, Nabil Matraji, was able to verify for himself. "It's an amazing sight," he said.
However, it is not only Charbel's portrait in Nuhad's home which oozes healing oil. The same phenomenon is happening with oil flowing from the portrait of a 4th century saint, the founder of the Maronite order, Saint Maron, given in the English and American reference books as Saint Maro, after whom the order was named. The same Maron, so Nuhad learned in a later dream, was the second monk who had helped in the operation which cured her.
Raymond Nader, a Lebanese electromechanical engineer, carried with him quite spectacular evidence of Charbel's activities. On one arm he has 5 fingerprints literally burnt into his skin. The scorched fingerprints have already renewed themselves 6 times. Raymond Nader told his story earlier this year, in April 1997, in front of the TV cameras.
On the 9th of November 1994, he spent a night in the Hermitage where Charbel had lived for 23 years. He wanted to meditate and had lit 5 candles. It was a still, cold night. Suddenly, he told Mur Television, I felt a warmth around me in the cold night, and a fiery, warm wind began to blow. However, to my great surprise, the flames of the candles were steady and still. I tried to reason scientifically, but I thought I might be dreaming or hallucinating.
Suddenly I lost my 5 senses. There was no more warmth or wind or flames. I was in a different world, a world bathed in light. Not the usual light we know, not white but transparent like crystal water. The light didn't come from a specific direction, but from everywhere. It was 1 billion times brighter than the light of the sun.
In that light I felt a presence. I couldn't see it, but I was aware of it. No, you are not dreaming. You are more awake than ever. The voice came from nowhere and yet from everywhere. I heard it in every part of me, not with my physical ears. It expressed itself to me with no words, no sounds. The presence presented itself to me as a feeling of deep peace and joy and love. At a certain moment I felt that this experience had come to an end. I wanted this joy and peace to last forever, and if the presence couldn't stay, I wished at least it would take me with it. But he made me understand that he is always here.
Gradually, Nader returned to normal consciousness. I looked at the candles with astonishment. They were totally consumed. My watch indicated that 4 hours had passed in the blink of an eye. I left the Hermitage, and on the way to my car I felt heat in my arm. I thought it might be a scratch or an animal's sting, but the heat grew stronger. I took off my pullover, and in the light of my car saw 5 fingerprints on my arm, showing every detail of human fingers, including the wrinkles and the nails. It was very hot, but there was no pain at all, only itching. For 5 days it oozed blood and water.
Dr. Nabil Hokayem, a plastic surgeon, one of the most famous surgeons in Lebanon, confirmed that it was a 2nd-degree burn. On the occasion of the feast day of Charbel on the 15th of July in 1995, Raymond Nader had a new and extraordinary experience while visiting the monastery of Saint Maron.
On my way to Charbel's Hermitage, I saw a procession ahead of me. I recognized the monks of the monastery, but at the end of the procession was a very old priest. I approached him to ask a few questions. As I came closer to him, everything around me changed. All sounds disappeared, but the old priest's voice resounded inside my head. It was then that Nader heard one of the 6 messages, which he attributes to Charbel. With each message, the fingerprints on his arm were renewed. The following are quotations from these messages.
The Lord has created each human being to shine, to enlighten the world. You are the light of the world. Each man is a lantern meant to shine. The Lord has provided a clear and transparent glass to the lantern, to enable that light to shine and illuminate the world. But they are taking care of the glass and forgetting about the light. They are caring about the glass shape, colouring and decorating it until it becomes thick, opaque, preventing light from shining forth, and thus is the world drowned in darkness. The Lord insists on illuminating the world. Your glass must become transparent again. You should realize the purpose for which you are born in this world.
Christ knows what is in your hearts, and it is your hearts that he wants. Don't seek for the truth outside the Christ. When you know the Christ, you will know the truth, and you will be free. The Christ wants you to be free. Fear not, and be sure that the Christ has defeated the world.
The Church of the Christ is a rock upon which are being shattered the waves of evil. Christ is the way. Crosses of light will flood the earth. And now for a few more quotations from Saint Charbel. Let Christ live in you, and then you will live at the heart of the mystery of the universe, in the source of light. Meditation consists of contemplating things as they are, and not as you think them to be in your mind, or as you want them to be. Train yourselves for silence, a silence that listens, a silence that lives, a silence that is quite far from the calm of nothingness.
And that's our program for today. If you have any questions or would like to know more about the World Teacher, Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom, please visit the website share-international.org.
To inquire about Share International magazine subscriptions, books by Benjamin Creme, or our monthly free of charge newsletter, the number is 04234 1133, or write to P.O. Box 9576 Wellington.
Thank you for listening to us on Wellington's Access Radio 106.1 FM. And please tune in to our next World Teacher program on Saturday the 7th of June at the usual time of 10 a.m.
You can listen again to this program and previous ones by visiting our website at share-international-nz.info and click on the radio tab.